بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمد ونصلي على رسول الكريم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ask him to send peace and blessing our Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is a book we've been reading. This is the 19th recording on the Ahwaalul Quboor, the horrors of the grave. The chapter that we're starting today, inshallah, cover it this week and next week, inshallah. باب ما جاء في كشف عن بعض آداب أهل القبور ونعيمهم. The chapter on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealing, showing some of the adab al-qabr and some of the rewards of the qabr. So today we'll be reading about adab al-qabr. And the Shaykh Imam Ibn Rajab Al-Hanbali Rahimahulla says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses some people to show them the punishment of the grave. They get to see in this world some people, and because this happened in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and also afterwards as well. That in some instances you hear that people will see what's in the qabr, like some recordings are there, or you might have heard as well. When we hear it from Allah and from where, but these are incidents that have been verified and checked by the Imams. Similar to even like you could say even like hadeeth, how hadiths are verified and checked. Also these stories also were checked, and some of them are not so strong, some of them are strong. So the first incident mentioned that Salim bin Abdullah bin Umar. Abdullah bin Umar, of course, is son of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, a unique Sahabi. They say that he was a Sahabi, he lived 60 years after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And young Sahabi in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said very senior Sahaba like Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha and others, he said that he's the only person that stayed on the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from among us. And even to the point they wanted to make him Khalifa at one point, but he declined. Because if I have to fight other Muslims, he refused on that ground. He goes, I don't want to get involved in problems between Muslims, right? Because Umar radiallahu anhu's time is different, and this time is different. So he refused to get involved in the politics and so forth and so. But they said that in terms of strictness to adhering to what Rasulullah, among the Sahaba, and all the Sahaba adhered to, but he said the one who had the most istiqamah was Abdullah. His son was Salim bin Abdullah bin Umar. He narrates from Abdullah bin Umar. So Salim is the grandson of one of the Imams in Medina Munawwara in the rays of hadith as well. He said, he goes, I passed by the graves from the graves of Jahiliyyah, people that were buried before Islam. And he goes, all of a sudden, he goes, like a man popped out of the grave. And in his neck he had a chain with fire, from fire. And when he saw me with water, he said, oh Abdullah, isqini, that give me water, or pour some water on me. I don't know whether he called me because he knew my name, or whether he called me Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu, that he narrated from his father. So Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu, because his name was Abdullah, or it was that habit of Arabs, they call people by Ya Abdullah, Ya Allah ke bande, oh slave of Allah, like in a general thing, not a specific. His name was Abdullah, but he said I don't know whether he called me because my name is Abdullah, he knew me, or that it was a general call that the Arabs make. Like if you see like in Saudi Arabia today, Ya Muhammad, you hear this one? You're calling somebody Muhammad. If you don't know the person's name, they call him by Muhammad. Maybe something similar to that. I wasn't sure. And he said another man came from out of the grave, and he said, oh Abdullah, don't give him water. Oh Abdullah, don't give him water. Don't give him a drink. He's a kafir. And then he took the chain, yanked it and pulled him back into the grave. In another narration, it mentions that a lady, one of the persons was traveling, so there's an old lady staying, because I ended up staying next to her house or something. Sorry, there was a grave next to her house, I was staying there. And I heard in the night someone saying something, and he asked the lady, what is this? He said, this is my husband. Like he was saying about urine, something about urine and something about a water container and something. He was saying some things. And he said that she said that this is my husband, the voice of my husband from the grave, that he would not stay away from the drops of urine. And and he was a person that didn't care. He didn't care about, when he used to go to the bathroom, he used to not care about his tahara, his cleanness, right? It mentioned that a man came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The narrator said, I came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and I informed him what I saw in my journey. And after that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, so there was an incident mentioned, the same incident and about what he saw and what he heard in that lady's house. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would not allow anyone to make journey, safar, by himself. So of course safar is what? A journey, but safar means traveling, right? You pack a bag, you're going to travel for several days. So technically, the technical safar is 80 kilometers. Technical safar is 80 kilometers, like for fiqh purposes, you shorten your prayers, right? When you're traveling, it's 80 kilometers approximately. But safar also is like, but with the 80 kilometer distance in that time was 2-3 days journey, right? It was 3 days journey, 2 days journey. Generally, in that time, that was a safar. So if you're traveling to Sydney, for example, technically it's a safar, and you can shorten your prayers. Fine. That's the fiqh, what it says. But it's only 1 hour flight, or even halfway if you're traveling halfway. It's a half-hour flight. It's like 400-500 kilometers you're covering. But anyway, so safar he's talking about, not like in the day, like for example, now I'm going home, I'm driving to Melton. It's not a safar. It's 50 kilometers. But it's not really a safar in the sense of that I'm packing to go out on a journey, I'm going to be cut off from my home and so forth. So this journey, that a person should not set out for a journey by himself, right? In this, the riwayah, the Rasulullah after this, at this point the Rasulullah prevented people at night time, because these things are frightening to people. It could be too much shock for people. There's incident of people fainting and they experience something and they faint, and it could, people could die from this. It's very frightening and disturbing for a person. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prevented people after this to travel by themselves to certain they could be exposed to something that is not good for them. Imam Tabarani Rahimahullah narrated, and the narration, one of the narrators is weak, also from Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, that and there was a man that came out of at Badr. This happened that from a ditch a man came out with the chains around his neck, and he said, "Oh Abdullah, give me a drink." And in this narration mentioned, and I came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and informed him. He said, "Did you see him?" I said, "Yes." He said, "This is the enemy of Allah, Abu Jahl. This is in Badr, after Badr." He said, "This is his punishment till the day of judgment." In another similar narration, a man came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that is, I passed by Badr and I saw a man coming out of the ground, and another man was hitting him like it's a stick that's used for driving. Not specifically, it says mentioned. I was checking the dictionary before this word. It's driving elephants, so it must be a big stick. So he said that this man came and pulled him back into the ground, and he tried to come out many times. And the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "This is Abu Jahl bin Hisham. He will be punished till the day of judgment." In another narration, Imam Waqidi Rahimahullah, he mentioned that Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, another narration mentioned that he saw an angel, and he said that don't give him a drink. This is Ubay bin Khalaf. These are the big kuffar. It seems Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu, he got to see these things on multiple times, and also verified by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well, the previous narration. Another narration, Ibn Abi Dunya rahimahullah, he mentioned that Hisham bin Urwa, he narrated from Urwa, his father, Urwa bin Zubair radiallahu anhu, Sahabi Zubair radiallahu anhu. Zubair is one of the Sahabi, this 10 Sahabis promised Jannah. Zubair is one of them, and Zubair is one of his sons, Urwa, who was a Tabi'i, right? His brother is Abdullah bin Zubair, right, who's a Sahabi, but his brother's Urwa, he was a great Mufassir, and he was a Tabi'i, right? And Urwa bin Zubair is like one of the Imams of the Tabi'in. His brother Abdullah bin Zubair is a 4th generation Sahabi. So he was a Sahabi. His father Abu Bakr Siddiq, his grandfather, his father Zubair, and mother Asma bint Abu Bakr, the daughter of Abu Bakr, she is a Sahabiya. The grandfather Abu Bakr is Sahabi, meaning they were with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Abu Quhafa, which is the grandfather, great-grandfather of their grandfather, or Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu's father. He's also a Sahabi. He became Muslim at Fath Makkah. So there are 4 generations. The only family, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu is the only family that 4 generations is Sahaba in his family. So him, his father, his daughter, and then the grandson. So Abdullah Zubair. So his brother is Urwa bin Zubair. Urwa bin Zubair was one of the Imams of Makkah. It's interesting that our teacher Mufti Ubaid Rahman was telling us in class, Urwa bin Zubair, the brother Abdullah bin Zubair, the Sahabi, was sitting, the young men, they were sitting, and Abdul Malik bin Marwan, if I'm correct, he was sitting, one of the Banu Umayyah Khalifas. They were young men, they were sitting near the Kaaba. And they said that Abdullah bin Zubair said, I want to be the ruler of Makkah. And then I think it was Abdul Malik Marwan, he said that I don't want to just rule Makkah, I want to rule the whole Muslim world. And Urwa bin Zubair said, I don't want to rule Makkah, I don't want to rule the Muslim world. I want to learn the book of Allah. Meaning, more or less, is how I remember it, that I want to learn the book of Allah, that I teach people from all over the world, come and I teach them the book of Allah. And exactly that's what happened. And then Abdullah bin Zubair, apparently he got up and he walked and he went to pray Salat. And then Abdul Malik Marwan said that he made like a dua again, so expressed at the person that will kill him. The irony is, Abdullah bin Zubair became the governor of Makkah, then he claimed Khilafah as well. Abdul Malik Marwan is the one that sent the army against him. He became the Khalifa of all the Muslims. He's the one that sent the army that killed Abdullah bin Zubair at the age of 70. And Urwa bin Zubair, he became one of the great Imams of Medina, Rahimahulla, and he used to teach the book, and he's the Imam. So whatever they wished in front of the Kaaba, this is a place that du'as are accepted. So how life, the way things turn out, where things were at one point, and once things have changed, they're very hard to roll. People always want to roll things back, how it used to be. Not things that never go back. You know, things in English there's an expression: there's too much water under the bridge. You know, it's gone, it's past. What's happened was good, alhamdulillah. What's the world is now, we have to deal with what's now. We can't roll things backwards. We can revive good things, but we have to deal with the world, the here and now, right? So anyway, so Urwa, he narrates from his father, Hisham bin Urwa is the son, so he narrates from Urwa, his father. He goes, one day there's a rider between Makkah and Medina. Then there's a grave that is stopped by, and if you go between Makkah and Medina on the bus, so the highway doesn't go, those who've been Hajj will know this, the highway is not the road, but on the way you'll see the road. Sometimes they point out that's the old road, the route that was taken between Makkah and Medina. So it's sort of like, it's a more direct road, the highway, I think, and then the other road, which is according to the land feature, so they'll point out that's the old road that people used to travel. It used to take 13 days or 11 days or something like that. People used to go by foot or camel. The journey between Makkah and Medina, not from your homeland, the journey between Makkah and Medina was 11 or 13 days or something like. If I remember, I heard from my father, Rahimahullah, I heard it's 13 days between Makkah and Medina. That was a general, what was the journey between Makkah and Medina. So anyway, when the person was traveling, he passed by a grave, and then a man came out from the grave with fire and chain, and the chain is of fire, and he said, "Oh Abdullah, blow on it, or like extinguish it." And then another one came out, "Ya Abdullah, don't blow on it." And the rider, when he saw this, he fainted. He fainted on his ride, and it mentioned that his hair went white from this, like his hair became totally white from the shock of this. And then this was informed to Uthman radiallahu anhu, I think it was the Khilafah of Uthman radiallahu anhu, and then after he, as a Khalifa, he prevented people from traveling alone, making safar by themselves. It mentioned another narration that the person came out of the grave, and those flames and chains, and he said to give him a drink. And another person came out, and he said, following him from out of the grave, he said, "Don't give him a drink. Don't give a kafir a drink." And that there was a chain around him, and they pulled the chain back into the grave, and they both went into the grave. And he said, "I just bolted. I hit my camel just to get out of his riding. He's scared." One of my cousins, he said that not even they see anything like this. He said, "I went to the village graveyard, and in the graveyard," he goes, "it's during the daytime, And he goes, he goes, I don't know why. What happened to me is all of a sudden I just start running. He's an alim. He goes, I went in the graveyard, and he goes during the day, and then he said, then suddenly something came over me. He goes, just started running, and he hasn't seen anything like this, you know. So our hearts are very weak today. But anyway, so he scared himself with his imagination. Then he said, I arrived in Medina Munawwara, and I came to Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, and I informed him. He said, I will not accuse you, but like what you've told me is very shocking. Umar radiallahu anhu is very severe. Then Umar radiallahu anhu sent a message to that tribe, that area there, to those villages. Like, I'm not accusing of anything, but what you've told me is like shocking, and I need to know. He goes, yeah, we knew this. Then those villagers came back with the news. The elders, Mashaykh, they said Mashaykh, he's like the elders, sheikhs, like the old men of the village, or those villagers, they came back with the news. This was one man from the Bani Ghifar. He died in Jahiliyyah, before Islam. Then Umar radiallahu anhu said, Alhamdulillah, he praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he became very happy that he died in Jahiliyyah, because for him he was worried that this is a Muslim, someone died in Islam, because that whole area by the time of Umar radiallahu anhu's Khilafah was all Muslim. So how is it possible that a Muslim can die like this, be punished like this? He was worried that a Muslim was getting azab. Right? Like Khilafah, you know, and like people worry about the dunya of the Muslims. He's worried that someone in his Khilafah might have died, in Islam might have died, his condition became like this. How is this possible? He was like so concerned, because when the news came that this person died before Islam, in Jahiliyyah, then he said, he was a man from, they said, Ya Amir al-Mu'minin, he was a man from the men of Jahiliyyah, before Islam, the era of Jahiliyyah. Jahiliyyah means the era before Islam. Jahili means ignorance. So it's the era of ignorance, the age of ignorance. And so, he never fulfilled the rights of a guest. He didn't give the guests their right, their haqq. Especially, of course, if someone is traveling or someone comes to you as a guest in that time. Right? Like one is normally, as we have guests, somebody comes to our house, but in that time, like somebody comes to your prop land or your village, and you don't give them any food. There's no hotels, there's no petrol stations, there's no, you basically like, people have to suffer. It's not just like here, like we can make do with, people. We don't depend on hospitality, right? Like we give hospitality, but the hospitality is like we still should give hospitality and take care of it, but this person didn't take care of any visitor that came. And also it mentions that, another narration, a man came to Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, and his hair and half of his beard has become white. He goes, what happened to you? Ya Amir al-Mu'minin, I passed by a grave of so-and-so, and then there was a man, he wanted a whip from fire. Every time he met that person, catch up to that person, he used to hit him. And he used to hit him from his top of his head until the fire used to go all the down. And he asked, as this person called me, he asked for my help. And another man said, don't help him, don't save him. He's the worst slave of Allah. And then Umar radiallahu anhu said, this is why your prophet, he did not like that a man travel by himself, make a safar journey by himself. In another narration is mentioned that that a donkey came out of the ground, and it brayed the sound of a donkey, nahaq, or it made the sound that a donkey makes 3 times. And then it enters back into it. I came to the people, I said, I told them what I just witnessed. This donkey came out of the grave. He goes, this used to be a boy of this village. And that's actually over there, his mother. And he used to swear at his mother. And he used to say, you're nothing except for a donkey. He used to call his mother a donkey. And then he used to make the sound of a donkey in his mother's face, in her face. When he died in that pit or the grave, every day he comes out of every day this comes out, even they saw it as well, that he makes this sound, he comes out of his grave. 3 times. He makes this sound like he used to when he was alive. He used to make the sound of a donkey in her face 3 times. And then the last few narrations. It's mentioned, the incident, very famous incident, mentioned, narrated in many books. There's a person who had a sister, she was buried, he dropped his money, then he forgot about it, then he went to another person, dig the grave to get his money, pouch, whatever, out. And as he was getting it out, he said, oh, let me just, and he saw fire in his sister's grave, and he said, he asked his mother, what did my sister do that was so wrong? She said she used to delay the time of salat, and I think she prayed sometimes without wudu. And then she used to eavesdrop on neighbors, when they were at night time, there was privacy, and then she used to tell people, and like gossiping, she used to carry tales and so forth. Another similar sort of narration mentioned about it, he reached into the grave, he saw like a belt of fire, and he said, I tried to remove it from my sister, and he said it burnt, he showed his hand, he goes, it burnt his arm. And the last narration that Imam Awza'i Rahimahulla, he said, these Jews and Christians die, their death, we don't hear anything from them. Someone asked Imam Awza'i, one of the early Imams, he said, yes, because Yahud and Nasara, there's no doubt they're going to Jahannam. There's no doubt about that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through this ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wants to give you maw'izah, admonition to other Muslims. There's things that are being done, these all about other Muslims. So Allah opens your insight to them, because the kuffar is already done, and if they died in kufr, the Yahud, Nasara, then they go in Jahannam. But for these Muslims, Imam Awza'i said, is for admonition for you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from these, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to practice and understanding of the realities of what's to come, and that we act in accordance with that. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallah bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al mursalin, alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Jazakumullah khair.